Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joshi Dream Cast here on Fightful Overbooked. I am your host, as always, Scott Edwards, and with me once again on this
Your
fine
guest,
occasion.
as always.
Yes, my guest. You were on the last episode, to be fair, though. The last episode was like a month ago, at least, so it's been a while. But I'm happy to have you on. You were on my other podcast most recently, so it's not like we haven't talked. But happy to have you on here. Very last second thing on my end, but we got a lot to talk about in a lot of different ways.
I'm always ready to talk, Joshi.
I know. I can always count on you, and my timing, it always works out perfectly. But we had a great weekend here for Joshi, and I thought this episode best used to catch everyone up on the 5-star Grand Prix and all the great things happening in that tournament. But first, we are going to talk about Just Tap Out. I'm sure that's something not many people expected us to talk about right off the bat here, but there was a match worth talking about. Just fantastic, and I want everyone to know that crowds being back, it just adds a whole element that I don't think we are ready for in Stardom yet. Like, they haven't done the situation right where it's on and off yet, so it hasn't affected us, right? Like, now that New Japan's done it, everyone's gonna be like, oh, this is bad. Like, Stardom fans, we're just used to the clap crowds by now. But it's gonna be tough now. So of course the match I'm talking about is Tomoka Inaba and Aoi versus the Stardom team of Micah and Mirai. Of course, all four of these women trained by Taka Michinoku. This was his 30th anniversary event. I believe it was called the Taka Taichi Despi Mania show. I think that's the whole name now. They've added Desperado's name into the situation, which is very nice. But and I have to recognize, because I know the match that everyone's talking about is the main event of the show, of course. But we're here to talk about this women's match because I think it deserves just as much talk for what it was. And to me, it was a career-altering performance for a certain...
You nearly said career-making, didn't you?
Well, I was going to say making, but it's still so young that she's still so young that she can do that even more going forward. But it alters in the way that you're like, oh, this is what she can do already, and we don't see that enough. But let's get into the match. How did you enjoy the match as someone that, you watch all Stardom? No one really just watches all of Just Tap Out. You try to find the matches here or there, but it's very hard.
I'm not going to pretend I'm a hardcore JTO fan.
No, the most we know from Inaba and Aoi is from, of course, New Blood. So,
Look, I was going into this match expecting it to be pretty good. All four wrestlers are really great. Aoi's the quote-unquote weak link of the group, but that's not a bad weak link to have. I wasn't expecting it to go as hard as it did. And what I'm really impressed about is I didn't watch this live. I watched it the next morning for me in Australia. And I woke up to everyone talking about, obviously, Despi Kasai, but I saw a lot of Joshi Twitter talking up this match. So I went into it with, I was worried I'd have slightly...
Was I part of that Joshi Twitter?
Most likely. You post about 7 times on every match you watch. So I'm sure I saw about 4 of them.
Only if it's really good.
So, yeah, there was elevated levels of expectation for this match. And I was worried that was going to, you go into a match that's been hyped up. It can sometimes not meet the levels you'd expect compared to going into a blind. But this delivered despite the high praise and the hype that was coming in, which, that sort of set it to a whole nother level to me. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was. Inaba looked fantastic here. Like, I absolutely agree. This is one of those performances you're going to look back on and go, okay, that's one of the points when she took that next step up. High-profile match up against 2 big Stardom names. She just put her name into the Stardom hat, the night before she wrestled for God's Eye at the pay-per-view. And of the 2 matches, this one felt like a bigger deal.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the fact she was on pay-per-view, Yokohama Budokan teaming with Shuri, this was the match that kind of felt, she brought out the big fancy gear for it. She was getting the high spots and everything. So fantastic performances from all four wrestlers. No one disappointed. I can't wait to see what the future holds for these four. And look, the fact that this has happened in the middle of the 2022 5-star Grand Prix, 2023, I think we're getting Tomoka Inaba in the 5-star, and that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. The way I explained this match after watching it, or even during watching it, I said this is the Tomoka Inaba that I know has been there. And I've just been waiting to see her, in the sense that, she uses a lot of her kicks, and they're brutal kicks. And that's really just her offense. It's just, the way she presents herself is already like, you got that part down, right? You're super serious, you're super intimidating, but you got to use that. And a lot of the matches I've seen from her this year, have been her doing a lot of grappling and submission work. And I'm like, that's not what I know you for. Like, I know what you can do, and it's be an absolute threat with your striking. And that's why I was so happy for her joining God's Eye, because I thought, oh, sure, you'll bring that out of her and she can mix in the grappling well. But this was like the ultimate, this is what I can do. This is me at my best.
Yeah.
And saying this at her best, she's only 3 years in. She still has so much room to grow. But this was the match that you opened your eyes and said, okay, she's special. For anyone that may have been like, because the New Blood shows, they don't give you that much, right? The match on the Yokohama Budokan 5-star show didn't give you that much. She got the win. She showed some signs.
Cosmic got a lot of offense in that match.
They did get a lot of offense, which we'll talk about a little later. Not really, but we'll briefly.
We got to talk about Waka.
Right, we got to talk about Waka, of course. But the whole thing with Inaba is that she shows so much skill at such a young age, right? Like, she has been in JTO essentially. That's it. Like, she started to branch out a little bit over the past year, especially, but otherwise, it's just been JTO, and like, you can only do so much, right? And we've seen Micah, and the reason I want to talk about this match so much is you have Micah coming home, right, to JTO. She's the bigger star, already established. She is with Mirai, who we know is a fan favorite, and you could feel that when she made her entrance. They're the Stardom team. Yeah. How can you step above the rest, right? And she did it. She did it by just being herself to the fullest. So I want to ask, like, after watching this match, does it rank for you in terms of like top Joshi matches this year because of what you didn't expect from it? Because you looked at it on the card, right, as I did, and I saw, okay, Inaba's great. Aoi's getting there, like, she's working her way, she's shown flashes, and of course you have the two Stardom wrestlers who we know what they can do. But you still are like, well, it's it's in the middle of the card, it's like, it's a showcase match, but is it really going to be that good? And I thought it exceeded any expectation I had.
Probably it ranks in terms of maybe like the top surprises of the year, just for the very reasons you said. Like, most of the big Stardom matches that I've watched this year, they've all had build, or like, you go into it going, oh, this is going to be a spicy one. It's on the right spot on the card. It's getting the attention it deserves. This one could have very easily snuck under a lot of people's radars, and I think that's where you would sort of put it there. Is it a top match of the year? No. But I think in terms of like, when I finished it, it was probably one of the most I've enjoyed, which is saying something, because there's been a lot of good Joshi this year. So I guess I'd put it on that level. One other thing I do want to say about this is I really enjoyed seeing Aoi up against higher level wrestlers, because with the New Blood shows, she tends to be on the lower end. Like, she's not facing a lot of high level talent. This was her chance to really, show what she's made of up against people who can carry her properly. And Mirai and Micah worked really well with Aoi, and so hopefully, maybe we don't just see Aoi on these New Blood shows, but she gets a chance to shine up against some higher level talent moving forward in Stardom.
Yeah, I thought Aoi was great, you know, and sometimes when she's doing certain moves, she'd turn them into submissions, and I was like, oh, that was creative. I did not expect that. And I understand where you are. The way I look at this match is that one, it exceeded expectations. Two, the atmosphere just added so much to it.
Yeah.
Three, I really just thought they all put their working boots on. It just felt special in a lot of ways, despite there not being any titles. You know, it was just four of Taka Michinoku's trainees going out there and putting on a show. And I thought, you know, the spot of the match, of course, and I think everyone will agree to this, is when Micah hits the, you know, brain buster / it's a superplex, but they call it brain buster, from the top rope and off the camera. Like, you slightly see Inaba start to get up, but you see Micah just have this great reaction, and it's slowed down. So it's not like she instantly gets up. She works her way up, and Micah's like has a shock, fear, and Inaba hits like the best, most devastating kick I've seen in a while. It was perfection. It was like it was the point of the match where I was just like, you know, getting out of my chair, like, oh my god, here we go. And I wanted the JTO team to win so bad. Like, they were such good baby faces. They convinced me. Like, it's so interesting watching Mirai because obviously she's a baby face in Stardom, but she has an ability to her that could play a really great heel. We don't see it a lot, but as the powerhouse she is, it works. And she really teased that throughout this match, and I was really enjoying what we got to see there.
On that superplex spot, that is probably the best example of why we're really missing cheering crowds. Because, okay, obviously it's nice hearing them chant the names and all that, but Micah reacted to the crowd, not to Inaba getting up. Yeah, it's one of my favorite spots in a long time because of this, because Mike hits the suplex. Yes, off camera, you can kind of see Inaba's arm raising a bit to hint at it, but the crowd starts to roar, and you see Micah kind of being confused, like, what are they going about? And then it clicks in her mind, and she sells it brilliantly, like, oh, I didn't put her down with that. That wouldn't have been possible with a club crowd. It wouldn't have had the same effect. So
I totally agree.
I don't blame the fact that Stardom haven't sort of gone to experiment with these club crowds, because they're selling out every show. Why would you sacrifice a half gate when you're going to sell a full gate? New Japan get away with it because they're not selling out a lot of these shows. Stardom, the money's there. They don't need to. Yeah. But when we get these odd opportunities, and hopefully maybe November 20, they'll maybe allow cheering for that show. Yeah. That'll be when it really gets exciting. Just, we're getting teased.
Yeah, the teasers have been great. I mean, I know a lot of people have probably seen the New Japan clips where, you know, the Naito chants is raining through, and it was like goosebump type stuff. Yeah. And it was really cool to hear people chant for Micah during this match. I thought that was really special because you know, she's obviously hasn't had any of it for a while. Mirai either. But going home and getting that reception, I'm sure meant a lot to her.
It was like with Inagi when she went to the Gunbearer show and they had the streamers again. Like, you could tell how much that meant to her after 2 odd years to get that physical representation. And a lot of these wrestlers haven't had it for a long time or at all, really.
And I want to make the point, it's like, obviously these wrestlers aren't suffering like from not having crowds chant or anything, because like Stardom has the best corkins in wrestling right now. Like, those things are as lively as can be without cheering. So it's just, it gives you the hint of when cheering's back, somehow Stardom's product's going to be better.
You just have to look at those couple of Kurikans before the pandemic. Start of 2020, the January show, the February show. Like, I still go back to the Iroha Mayu match, in part because it's a bloody fantastic match, but the crowd is just so on, like, absolute peak levels of loudness. You watch that and then you look at the current product, and like, you know, like, that crowd's going to be like that once the cheering's allowed again, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's the dream. And I'd love if Stardom did one show where they just had cheering, of course. Like, that would be obviously great, but like you said, they're doing so good business-wise. Why stop now?
Exactly.
But this is a match absolutely worth going out of your way to see. Between this and the trios match from this past weekend's Yokohama Budokan show, like, just two I think I said career defining or not career altering performance for Inaba. We'll talk about the other one in a little bit for a certain future ace of Stardom. But please watch that match. I know everyone's going out of their way to watch El Desperado and Jun Kasai, which I'm sure is true. I haven't got to watch it yet. But please, if you have the link to watch the show, watch this match as well. They absolutely killed it. Inaba and Stardom is going to be very special. And even more so, Micah versus Inaba is going to be one heck of a feud when we get that. Because they just have it. Obviously, they have chemistry because they train together, but in the ring, there's just an energy there when they step into it against one another. That's very special. Also, need to give credit to Mirai. I think she destroyed. Was it Inaba with a lariat?
She destroyed both of them. There was one little spot there where she clobbered one of them and then turned around and clobbered the other. She has one of arguably the best lariat in Joshi right now. Yeah, and that's coming from a Himika fan. And I love Himika's lariats, but there's something about Mirai's. She just gets that real snap in that
she does.
Is unequaled.
Yeah, she deserves a lot of credit for what she's done in the 5-star. And that brings us to our main topic here of the day.
How convenient.
Yeah. So 15 minutes on JT. I think that's pretty good. That might be longer than most of the shows that are going around. I'm guessing they won't talk about it at all, unfortunately. But it deserves that time. Again, please watch it. But let's talk about the 5-star Grand Prix. Like I said, I haven't been doing this show for a month. Of course, if you listen to the 5-star Joshi show, my other show, you have listened to my weekly recordings since the tournament started. It's been a special tournament, Trent. It's been a special. Expected. It's not like this was shocking or anything. And they had to live up to something that was really difficult, I thought, to live up to from last year. And we still have so many killer matches left. I think they're going to I wouldn't say blow it away, but they're going to pass it in terms of just exciting quality every night. And, just for people that need to have a definition like notebook match guide type matches, it's been a special tournament from start to right past the midway point now.
Yes, we're on the tail end of the tournament, and I think not the most surprising thing, but obviously we were expecting can it live up to last year. I think where it's really blown last year's out of the water is in consistency. Because last year had fantastic matches, high in the notebook matches, as you said, where it's you have to watch this match. This year's had those as well, but I think where it's really delivered is top to bottom. There's been very few matches where I've gone, oh well, that was a dud. I shouldn't have bothered with that. Last year, obviously there was some good performances across the board, but there was more matches where it's you skipped that. But there's not many wrestlers I'd look at and go, well, they've been underwhelming in this tournament. And if they have underwhelmed, it's not necessarily for the in-ring performance, but it's maybe their total number of wins or the impact on the stories in the tournament. Yeah. But in terms of just a match quality, top of the
I think that's where I like this tournament a lot more. And it's something you and me have discussed in detail, is that Stardom's very hit or miss with stories that don't involve titles, right? I think this tournament has done an incredible job at showcasing many of the stories that they've developed, but not always went back to, or many of the story, or developing new stories to follow. And I think that's one part that's really made this tournament shine. Every match that even Tam Nakano versus Mai Sakurai, right? That's a good example. There's been a story there. We know the story. Would they use it? Would they make the most of it? And they absolutely did, right? They did. And I think Mai Sakurai might have had her best singles match to date. If not that one, then the one with Suzuki, of course. But the fact it's even in the conversation proves that they used that previous story to their advantage. And we have a lot of matches here we can discuss. We have a lot of upsets, match of the tournament. We're going to get to all that, but we're going to go over the main standings here first, because it's very important. Trent has done the work to give us some looks at the race to the finals, which is very important as well, because it's an interesting case for the Red Stars and Blue Block, the Red Stars block and the Blue Stars block. It's still open. There's no, Hazuki had her run, She's dropped 3 straight since. It's a wide open ball game in both fields, and that's the most exciting part of this. So let's get to the standings here right now. We'll go through them real quick. After each block, I'm going to ask you your surprises, or if anything's just jumped off the page to you there. And I think looking at the Red Stars block, it'll be very quick to answer that one. So the Red Stars block is as followed: Azumi and Himeka tied at the top with 12 points, which I'm sure no one really knew if Azumi would be at that point yet. I think someone made a great point on Twitter the other day. I unfortunately can't give them credit because I don't remember who tweeted it, but she's gotten the Starlight Kid run from last year. She's establishing herself, showing that she's the real deal, and that should benefit her for the next year to come. Of course, Himeka, like I said, she only has 2 matches left. She has the least. Maika, Utami Hayashida, Shuri, Tam Nakano, and Risa Serra are all tied at 10. So, again, as I said, wide open. So many matches left for each of these wrestlers. We're talking about Koguma and Mai Sakurai. Yes, Mai Sakurai. Tied at 8. Saki Kashima and Saki tied at 6. And in the bottom, Unagi Sayaka and Momo Kogo. And I think Unagi Sayaka could absolutely be one of the real surprises after her better showing last year overall. She's really fallen down the card. So Trent, let me ask you, what's your biggest surprise of the Red Stars block so far?
See, this is tough because in a way, Azumi still being at the top is a bit of a surprise, but she's also the kind of wrestler where it makes sense for her to get a lot of these wins because the Azumi Sushi finisher is the perfect kind of surprise. I got you for 3. And the Red Block has got quite a few wrestlers capable of that, but none of them are more protected outside of the revival pin than Azumi Sushi, but she can win through other means as well. So her being at the top isn't necessarily a surprise. I would actually agree in the sense that Inagi only having, I think 2 wins is one win. There you go. Only having 1 win is very surprising just because, she's been, obviously had a much better tournament last year, but even in outside of tournament settings, she's generally treated as maybe not a high level wrestler, but definitely higher than a 1 win so far in the tournament. She's got a very interesting sort of finishing process. Even if she's not going to win a lot of matches coming up, she's got matches with Azumi, Maika, and Himeka to come. That feels like she's going to ruin at least one of their nights. I think one of those 3 are going to pick up a loss to Inagi, and it's going to matter. And Inagi's going to instantly regain her confidence and her arrogance. I mean, even on Sunday night against Risa Serra, she stole her kendo stick. Why would you do that against Risa Serra? That's just asking for death, and she got it. But that's probably the biggest disappointment. Not so much her over-level performance, but last year she had the fun story of her trying to shake everyone's hand. This year she has very much been just a background character. And considering the Red Block was quote-unquote the weaker of the 2 blocks, I was kind of hoping to see more from her this year. But, there's still time to come.
Right. Well, I know you're a big Unagi fan, so that's kind of why I hinted at it, because I look at it and I'm like, well, it's still very shocking because what she did last year. We haven't seen the Cork and Hall show yet, but her match versus Tam Nakano felt like a possible big win for her in this tournament because we've seen it before, but she continues to struggle. And you named Azumi, Maika, and Himeka. With Maika and Himeka set to fight that final night, it does feel like the upset could come against Azumi. That seems like the one to really spoil her at the last second. That's what she did for Sayakamatani last year. So, very possible. Let's go through the Blue Stars block now. My biggest surprise, by the way, for the Red Stars block was Azumi being at the top, but also Shuri being at 5 and 4. We've seen Shuri be pinned 4 times.
Yeah, a lot of flash pins, though. That's, of
course.
Yeah, when you looked at the tournament, because we both kind of assumed Shuri wasn't going to win it, because they generally don't do that with champions.
Still wouldn't see her pin.
Of course, but you had Azumi, which she did be, but Mai Sakurai, you've got Koguma, and you've got Saki Kashima, all with those kind of surprise flash pins. That's how they like to do these results. So it wasn't so surprising in that respect, but it is weird. It's just weird seeing her with so many losses, given how protected she is as a wrestler.
Totally agree. Blue Stars block here. This is a little more, I would say a little more open. They're both open. Like, I think the exact same amount. I think it's the exact same amount of competitors that still have a shot. It's just a matter of some people, if they lose once, they're done. It's over.
Yeah. I think this is a bit messy because Suzu's been delayed in some of her matches.
Yeah. And we have a draw.
Yes.
We have a draw. We finally got a draw.
So Rossi finally remembered how he books.
So Hazuki sits at 14 points. She is now 7-3. Real downfall coming here. Of course, she has that final night match with Momo Watanabe. That could be the make or break. Still in the fight, of course, as she leads the block. Sayakamatani sits at 6-2. She finally got slowed down recently after losing her first match. She went on a 6-match winning streak, but it was Suzuki who got the big win. We'll talk about that match a little bit. Julia and Mayu Yutani both tied at 11. Our wonderful draw queens over here. We can't get a winner between these two, Trent. Last year in the 5-star we did, but not this year. So that's tough. Ami Sarai, Mirai, and Natsupoi all tied at 10. Ami Sarai and Natsupoi both 5-4. A loss pretty much eliminates them from the running. And then some big surprising names here. We have Momo Watanabe, Starlight Kid, and Mina Shirakawa all tied at 6, with Momo being 3-5. She is the one eliminated out of those three, which is very sad to see, but who knows? Maybe there's a story to come from it. Of course, she was a finalist last year. Saida at 4 points at 2-5. Suzu Suzuki, 2 points at 1-4. And Hanan at an 0-9, 0 points for her. So out of all this, and I think it's hard to keep Suzu Suzuki in the conversation, but it's still fair because she is 1-4. Maybe that would be 3-4 if she got her first 2 matches, but we don't really know. We never know. So what is your biggest surprise here in the Blue Stars block?
Yeah, I've still got Suzu in my technical race to the finals bracket, just because she's still capable of maxing out at 16 points. Now, is she going to do that? Probably not, but it has to be taken into account. Plus, I like Suzu Suzuki. My big surprise, look, I did see Armani Exchange has been talking up Amy Sarai's run before the 5-star happened. He was saying, "Oh, look, there's going to be, she's going to surprise a lot of people with her performance." And I wasn't as hopeful for her performances, mainly because she hasn't won me over yet. And not that she's been doing okay, but definitely in terms of the bracket and the amount of points she's won, she's in the running. She's got that one extra match that she's had compared to, say, Mirai, so that's probably going to put her out of the final block runnings overall. But she has put herself into the picture to a level I wasn't expecting. I also wasn't expecting Mina Shirakawa to not only be technically still in the running this late in the game, but I also wasn't expecting her to have such an influence on the final block standings, because she's got a couple of matches against these contenders in the finals. And given the way she's been performing, I mean, she got a submission victory over Amy Sarai. She could upset a lot of people as well in these final blocks. And she's done it again. These 5-star matches, Mina Shirakawa turns up in the summer.
Yeah, she takes the rest of the year off. Rest of the year off, we just show up for the 5-star. Nothing but respect for Mina Shirakawa.
Shaquille O'Neal only shows up to the playoffs.
Yeah, except he has how many MVPs?
Comparison I wasn't expecting to make, mind you, but
so my biggest surprise here, it's starting to finally level out. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, we'd have a lot of different surprises, right? Especially in this block. Hazuki, obviously at 7-0, was the one no one was ready for. And it was so funny because people on Twitter would be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe the Blue Star blocks I've decided. Julia has no chance." I was like, chill out. There's time.
That's not how they book this.
Losses happen. You don't end the excitement of the tournament before the final night. That's not how tournaments work. Julia's still very much in the hunt, and we'll go in depth on her in a little bit, of course, because I think her tournament has been nothing but phenomenal.
The Hazuki shock for me has been the losses she's taken. Like, I had her definitely beating Sayakamatani because white belt match. And look, I could have run the simulations 100 times. I wouldn't have had Ida beating her.
No.
She can't handle the sire.
She also lost Ami Saray. So, you know, 3 big time losses to really send her down. My biggest surprise has to be Momo Watanabe, obviously. You know, I didn't expect her to win this year. I expect her to make it out of the block. But 3 and 5 already eliminated. It's shocking. It is absolutely shocking. She's still got a lot of big matches left. She's still got Julia, Mayu, and Hazuki as her main 3. So she's going to have to play spoil the rest of the way. 2-3 favorites, which should be exciting to watch. I'm sure she'll steal at least one of those wins. But
Hazuki.
Yeah, she's definitely good. If Hazuki's even in contention by then, at this rate, she won't even be a conversation.
Well, I think she's kind of forced to remain in contention because she's only got 2 matches left, and basically 16 points looks to be the absolute cutoff. And she's only got she's 1 win away. So,
it's going to be interesting. But Momo being so low, despite some really great matches in this tournament, is a shock. But I'm very interested to see where the story goes because, as we know, Natsuko Tora definitely seems like she's ready to go. It's just why return in the middle of the tournament? Right?
Exactly.
She's getting physical now too, so that's exciting. I mean,
she caught someone off a top rope dive at the Budokan recently. And look, I
think artist match in the artist.
Match. Natsuko Tora, I think, has probably been ready for a while, but they've decided to hold off on her. Maybe she's going to get particularly physical in one of the matches on the final night, and kind of they're going to use that as the announcement of, "Oh, you forgot about me? I'm back." It's actually starting to be really exciting because we've got Natsuko Tora coming back and we've got Thekla waiting in the wings as well. So even though we're getting not overexposed, but we're getting so many big time matches, they're not going to be exhausted by the end of it because there's a whole bunch of new stuff they can throw at us.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that with how great Oedo Tai's been, unfortunately without Tora, I'm hoping it stays great. Then go back to the heel, DQs all the time, because I think they can really benefit from her just being a strong ringleader while those two are obviously still at the forefront of this group. But it'll be interesting to see.
I think we get back to it because just before she got injured, I felt like they were showing that turning of the corner. And she was becoming more of just like that powerhouse bruiser rather than, I'm going to use my steel chain and get myself disqualified. Momo's kind of picked up the baton of that a bit with the wrench.
And that's screwing her over.
Yeah, but that's good. I think they've done that specifically to protect her because they probably looked and thought, well, we're not going to have her playing into the finals. Right. How can we kind of make her not look so bad? The wrench will get in the way. She'll get herself disqualified or distracted with it.
I was hoping they make it a story because obviously the wrench is the reason she's losing at this point. The only time it's worked this tournament really is against Starlight Kid. Which
of all the people.
Exactly. So there's no.
We need WCW 1998 period where it's like she's Hulk Hogan looking in the mirror and instead of the Ultimate Warrior looking back, it's just a wrench.
Yeah. So you did this great diagram here of where people can get to in terms of max points that are still in contention. Of course, who cares about everyone else?
I didn't worry about Momo Kogo.
And I think it's important because it highlights the matches left, and that's really where we can dissect this the most. Because Azumi, Himeka, Maika, Tam Nakano, Risa Sera, Shuri, and Utami all still very much in this fight. Some have lesser chance than others, obviously. But, for example, Tam Nakano and Risa Sera both have 5 matches left. They have a lot of time to make up some room and really take this over. So as we look at this, who out of all these wrestlers, how are you feeling right now? As we stand here, we have no idea who's in the finals, obviously. Everyone's separated by 2 points at the most. Are you with me on that being Tam Nakano as the finalist of the Red Stars block?
I've been on the Tam Nakano train pretty much from the start, and this was even before you made me realize that we could potentially be getting Tam Julia in the final. I thought Tam was a heavy favorite to go all the way, and I think the impressive thing is she hasn't felt like the story's been surrounding her yet. Like with the red block, it's been Azumi and Himeka mostly kind of taking all the attention. Tam's just quietly won 5 matches here. And when you look at the matches she's got to come, she's got a lot of big matches. She's got Risa Serra, she's got Shuri, she's got Utami, and then a final night against Saki, which just from a storyline perspective, like it could be the stablemate, trying to stop her from making the final. I think we're going to see the story of Tam's run really start to shine through here. So I think Tam has to be looked at the favorite. Risa obviously still has a good chance. They all have good chances, but considering we were talking about Tam being a favorite at the start and looking at the circumstances of this tournament so far, I would be leaning towards her. Yeah.
Here's the game that we'll play now, right? Mm-hmm. We have 7 people left.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you. So I want you to pick between these 3: contender, spoiler for the rest of the tournament, and especially the final night, and we'll just go with those 2 truthfully because that's all that matters. That's all that matters. So Azumi,
I think in the sense that she's going to be a contender.
Sorry, my other one was out. Like you just based off of what she's got left.
Yep.
And maybe they can't play spoiler on the last night because of their matchup. So we'll just say out.
I think Azumi is. When you say, just confirm, when you say spoiler, do you mean she will get spoiled or she will cost someone?
She will cost someone.
Okay. I think Azumi is a contender. I think she's facing Saki Kashima on the final night. It's flash pin versus flash pin. I think the Kisheki revival is costing her.
Yeah, she's getting
That's spoiled. Too convenient.
I call her out because of that matchup. I feel like it's too... It's kind of like the Unagi matchup for Sayakamatani last year. It was very apparent that's where it ended, so I think I will go with out for Azumi. Himeka, she has Unagi and Micah left.
I think she's out. She's definitely losing one of those matches. I could see Unagi potentially even costing her here as well. Obviously, I'm a big Himeka fan, but it doesn't feel like it's her tournament to win at the moment.
Yeah, I have felt. I don't know if you felt this way. I have felt for a while that Himeka and Micah is born to be a draw, with that costing them in the end of having a shot. I feel like they're going in there either with the same amount of points, or Micah maybe has one more, or something like that, and that will cost both of them. Because to me, I always thought if Tam wasn't making it, Micah made a lot of sense as kind of in the Momo spot from last year. Though I would go with Tam because of the Julia story. Yes, I still think Julia's winning. But that's kind of where I've been thinking. So I almost want to go out, but also spoiler in a way.
The only reason I would say it might not be a draw is just because that final night's going to have so many matches between everyone having a tournament match.
They did last year.
Final. They did, but it makes it more difficult.
Yeah, and I think we actually might get a different draw potentially, which I'll get to in a second.
Spoilers.
Tam Nakano, I think we can both agree a contender. We've really hinted at that. She, of course, fights Saki in the last night. She also still has Utami and Shuri, so get your star ratings out, people.
That's also important in terms of wins over each other, because if they finish on the same points, that's when you start getting out the math book and say this person beat this person and they beat them. They're key victories for her in terms of like Utami, Shuri can both still even up with her.
To me, it kind of feels like she's going to be tied with Utami on that final night, but she will have the win over Utami to move on. I think that's where we're going. Risa Serra, a very interesting one. I think she's a contender. Because, I'll give you my story.
Okay, give me your story.
Julia goes through Suzuki, and then Risa Serra in one night. She beats Prominence to move on, get her big match, kind of get rid of the group that's been haunting her this year, along with her own group. I don't think she's a contender in terms of. I still think Tam, but I wouldn't be shocked if they threw Risa that bone also. But Shuri, to me, and I'm just going to skip ahead to this because I want to point this out. I think Shuri's playing spoiler for Risa Sera that final night.
Yeah. It's one spoiling the other, which is probably an obvious position to be taking. But I could see Risa Sera maybe getting the win back over Shuri just to kind of tie them together. The other thing is with Risa Sera, she's got Koguma and Saki Kashima coming up, and they're both like, if you want to protect Risa in these wins, the roll-up surprise victories, that's an easy way to do it, which could put her out of the overall contention and then let her play spoiler to Shuri.
Yeah, it's going to be close. I don't think she's losing to Mai Sakurai. I think that'll be a win for her. You know, I think she's – Risa Sera's an interesting one because there's an aura, there's an idea around her that she's like treated as someone that doesn't want to lose to just anyone. But at the same time, she seems pretty game to lose to anyone in this tournament, which has been enjoyable. I think she's been really solid. But I'm on the brink of contender and spoiler in the terms that heading into that final night, I think a win and she's in, and I could see that Shuri match screw her. To Shuri, I think same situation. I don't have more to say than that. That's it.
Yeah.
And Utami, contender. It'll never count out Utami.
Yeah. I think you look at the final matches she's got left, Saki Kashima, Saki, all caps, Tam Nakano, Koguma. Obviously, Koguma is a major spoiler alert on that final night. We predicted Tam beats Utami, but, I mean, I could see her beating the other, both Sakis, which would put her at 14 points, which keeps her very much in the game.
Blue Stars block. This is big time now, right? We got a lot of contenders here, too. Even more, I think. I think we got 8 instead of 7.
Yeah, I didn't include Mina Shirakawa on this list, even though she's technically still eligible, mainly because I wasn't wasting my time considering Mina Shirakawa as
I'll just say out. I'll just say out now. There we go.
Yeah.
We gave Mina her time.
She's still in contention, but no.
Let's start with Hazuki. Her 2 matches left. Of course, she leads the block with 14. She has Mayu and Momo, and it does feel like she's losing both.
Yeah, I think she almost has to lose to Mayu to keep her in contention.
Also,
and then,
IWGP reasoning, I think.
Yes. So I keep forgetting that's because we don't fully know. I'm presuming it's probably the highest scoring people in each one. They haven't actually made this clear, but I do think, Mayu Yutani probably needs to beat Hazuki to confirm that she'll go into this. And like that Momo match, I think we had that pegged from the beginning that was going to cost her.
Scream spoiler at the end. Sayakamatani, of course, sitting here at 12. She's beaten Mayu, Hazuki, and Poi. Big wins, of course. Of course, two of the people I wanted to beat her for title matches, but that's fine. She's got Mirai, Mina, Julia, and Ami Sarai. To me, definitely seems like Mirai's beating her. Get the win back from earlier this year. We saw it with Starlight Kid already in this tournament. And then I could see Ami beat her too. The Julia match is interesting. I have no idea how to book it, but if I had to pick between contender, spoiler, and out, I'm going to just say she's out. That's how I feel about champs.
Yeah, I can't say Sayakamatani winning because she's the champion, but she's got 12 points on 8 matches. It's hard to say she's completely out because she's in arguably the best position out of anyone in this Blue Stars block, just in pure data.
Sure.
But you look at those matches, there's a lot of matches there you can see her losing, either to get spoiled or just kind of natural progression of this tournament.
Yeah, she's, of course, at 2 losses, so a couple losses are coming, possibly a title
Both of them
match.
are probable white belt contending matches too. So, she could take a loss to Julia, and Julia, if she wins the tournament, she's not then challenging Sayakamatani for the white belt. So that kind of wipes clear one expected defense. So she's not going to rack up too many. Yeah,
we're definitely getting Suzuki versus Saya. That feels pretty set.
Yeah,
and
Starlight Kid as well. They were hinting at that way back then as well.
Yeah, they do this thing where they have someone that's challenged before come right back in and beat them in the tournament, and then it's not always a guarantee for a title match, as we saw with was it Utami last year? Some old people beat her, but Micah got the title shot, so it's you kind of play that game. Julia, I think still my winner. She's
Ouch.
at 11. Yeah, she's very much a contender. She's got Ami Sarai, Momo Watanabe, Sayakamatani, and Suzuki. She's got a real ringer going.
What a final run.
She's, of course, she's kind of in a position where she can lose, but it's going to be tough for her to contend, right?
She can probably drop one match here and still comfortably make the finals. She can get a maximum of 19 points. 17 would put her in that kind of, you're still a favorite, but things kind of have to fall your way.
For sure. I think a record of, 4 losses, 1 tie kind of feels like the way she would get in. I do feel like Mayu goes into the night with that same type of record to play off of that as well. But as I was saying, she's got a big set of matches here. She can lose any of them. I kind of feel like out of all those, the Momo and Saya matches are the ones she would lose. Either one could go either way.
I could see the Momo. I could see Momo beating Julia as kind of like not payment for taking a lot of like she lost to Mina and lost to Ida, so kind of as thanks for that you beat Julia. I could see that happening, but she has to beat Suzu to make the
avoid the title match thought. And then the game I've played also in my head recently is the idea of that Suzu match. I wouldn't be shocked. And Suzu's not beating her, so anyone that thinks she's spoiling, I'm sorry, it's not happening. I wouldn't be shocked if they went the Shuri versus Takumi route, though, from last year and did have a draw. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. Because it does feel like it would be wrong to end this feud with just Julia beating her on the final night and they move on.
Yeah.
So that's the game I've been playing. But obviously, if Julia's champion, Suzuki can walk out and be like, I challenge you. But that's not as fun. I feel like...
Don't tempt me. Julia can take another draw, though, because it would line her up with the others. And as long as she's not tied with Hazuki, because Suzuki has that win over her. But it would, if she's going to draw with Suzu, I think she almost has to beat Kamitani because she's probably the most likely to be on the same points as her.
I agree. Ami Sarai out, but she definitely can play spoiler for Kamitani on the final night.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mirai out.
Not predicting her to Tony Stormont.
It could be bold of me to say, but because she has Mina, Saya, Starlight Kid, and Saida. I could see her get the win on the final night and be looking for help the rest of the show. Yeah, that makes sense as a spot for her. But she should not be winning this. That would be a bad plan. Bad plan. I think that's fair to agree upon.
The Western fans annoyed at her super push would be getting even worse.
It would be dangerous. Mayu Yutani. She has Hazuki, Mo Watanabe, and Starlight Kid the rest of the way. 3 very exciting matches, obviously.
Yeah.
Including the Momo one, which, if you guys have ever seen Momo and Mayu, you know what to expect. Great wrestling. The Hazuki one's one we've been waiting for over a year for.
For sure.
And, of course, the Starlight Kid one has all its history to go into it. She's definitely a contender. I never say Mayu is not a contender going to that final night. She's always got a chance, right? But she's going to lose. Or draw. I don't know what they're going to do because Starlight Kid beating her clean as, like, the whole story of Starlight Kid and Mayu is Starlight Kid wants to get to that level. If she just beats her, I wouldn't like that. So I wouldn't mind if this was a draw or something like that.
I'm leaning if there's going to be a match on the final night that's a draw. I could definitely see this match being the draw because it then it's telling the same story they told with Mayu and Tam a year ago, where Tam was like, for all intents and purposes, was equal with Mayu because they did draw on that big match, but it's still like you haven't beaten the icon, right. So you can come back to that story again. Yeah. I think the only way Starlight Kid would be beating Mayu on that final night, and for it to make the most sense is if she's then advancing to the final. And she technically could still make it, but it's very unlikely. I don't see that happening yet. No.
It's not looking good for poor Starlight Kid. Next year, I think when we get to the tournament, she'll be someone that we seriously talk about as a winner when we're predicting.
I don't think she'll win next year because she's going to be white belt champion next year.
That's fair. Hey, that's fair. And that's acceptable. We all want Starlight Kid to have something sooner rather than later. Natsupoi, I don't think she has a shot, so I don't really need to go over this. She has Starlight Kid, Saida, and Mina left.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like Starlight Kid will most likely beat her, you would assume. Ida has surprised with a couple of shock wins, so maybe that's another loss there. Natsupoi's done well for herself. Like, she's gotten key wins over Mayu, Mirai, Amy, and Suzu Suzuki. So, like, even if she doesn't win another match in this tournament, she walks away with some, prizes under her belt.
She definitely has an interesting spot because she's kind of like the spoiler in this block, but like we also know she's been pushed up the card too, so it's like, all right, this all makes sense for her to get wins. Suzu Suzuki, obviously the hardest person to figure out here because she's 1-4, not a great spot. Her one win,
you would assume she's out.
Her one win is against the Wonder of Stardom champion Sayakamatani. Her losses are to people not at the level of Sayakamatani. But she's got Saida, Momo Watanabe. Oh my god. Momo Watanabe, that just sounds dangerous. Mina Shirakawa, which is oddly interesting to me. Hanan, poor Hanan. Ami Sarai, Starlight Kid, which is a match we would have already gotten now, just like the Ami one. And of course, Julia on the final night. I don't know how to to me she's out, but like she obviously will go into the final night with the idea that she can be a spoiler.
Yeah, absolutely going to be a dangerous spoiler for Julia, even though you've kind of already written that off. I was predicting it from the very start, but I've been convinced that the Julia Tam final makes too much sense. So I do think the Julia wins or the draw. Maybe there's some shenanigans going on there, but like even though she's probably out and like she's only won 1 from 4, there's a lot of matches there you would expect her to win. The 3 matches that definite wins are Mina, Hanan, and stuff like Ida. But Amy, you would see her probably winning that match. Momo's a 50-50 split. Starlight Kid's a 50-50 split. And then Julia, obviously, is just depends what kind of story you want to tell on the final night.
Yeah. Starlight Kid, 18. She has a chance to get 18 points. She'd have to win out.
Yes.
She's 3-3 right now, 6 points. She's got Natsupoi, Mina Shirakawa, Mirai, Saida, Suzu Suzuki, and Mayu Yutani. So a lot of matches left for her. Spoiler, we kind of talked about earlier. She plays spoiler, whether she wins or draws or something like that. That's her role in all of this.
Absolutely agreed. It'll be fun to see her tournament progression because I think she's got a very back-ended tournament anyways, and with the Suzu match, it's kind of made it even more so. But it's going to be fun to see what she does.
Yeah, so we're sitting here right now. We both agree the likely final is going to still be Julia versus Tam Nakano. Seems like the way to go.
Yeah. But there's enough there to convince yourself that, this could happen, or they might go this way, which is what you want. You just need a hope.
They've booked this so well, in my opinion, to really have you feel all the emotions of certain wrestlers throughout this tournament. Because some, like Julia, drops the opening weekend, and you're just like, right? Like, is she gonna even be in this? And I saw some people act like that. I was like,
that made me more confident she was winning.
Yeah, and we'll talk about. I think what we're going to do now is go through each competitor and really just give our thoughts on their tournaments as a whole. And then we will talk about the Yokohama Budokan really quick. And we'll finish it up with talking our favorite matches of the tournament that you should check out if you haven't been watching or if you're behind, because I know a lot of people are behind. I'm not, because I'm psychotic, but some people are. And, the Corker show's not out yet, so I guess technically I'm behind, but not my fault.
You haven't seen every match that's happened, Scott.
I wish I have. I would if I could, okay? But, they're already putting them up. Nice. 2 matches up already. So,
let's stop
so much for going to bed
Watch
early.
everything that's still there.
So much for going to bed early, everybody. Anyways, back to what we were talking about here. So we're going to talk each competitor, how we're feeling. We're going to start at the bottom of each block, make our lives a little bit easier. Momokoko, how have you thought she's fared? Of course, she's 1-7. She wasn't even supposed to be in this tournament to begin with. But how have you enjoyed her matches?
Look, I think she's done well, all things considering. She wasn't meant to be there. I don't think anyone was expecting her to be at 5-star level necessarily. So it was always going to be a bit of a reach for
Dave
her.
Nelson is a judge of that. So
sorry for assuming Dave's opinions on Momo Kogo, but I thought she's handled herself well. Like no standout matches, but she's delivered amicably. You're seeing the potential there for what she could be, and she's had memorable moments. Like I absolutely loved the antics she had with Saki Kashima to get her that first win. So look, all things considering, good job, Momo. Good job, Superior Momo.
All right, watch yourself. Yeah, she's done fine. She's filled in. She's gave competitive looks. Nothing bad. If this is your weakest person in the block, you're doing something right, Stardom. Unagi Sayaka, 2 points, 1-6. Not where anyone expected her to be. She's below
too
my
focused on the
Sakurai.
Cosmic Rules match.
Yeah. So much so we have a second one, but I'm not talking about that.
And probably a third one at this rate.
Yeah, great. How have you felt about Unagi's tournament?
Well, I sort of mentioned a bit earlier, it's been disappointing in the sense that, she hasn't scored a lot of wins, but it just kind of felt like she's been a background character, which isn't Unagi's strength. She's normally more out there and, drawing attention onto her stories and her matches. So I've been disappointed because of that. She had the story last year with the handshaking. This year, occasionally there'll be a match with story behind it, like with the Risa Serra match. But lately, it's just she's there, which isn't her strength.
No, I think points wise, it's whatever. I don't care about that. It's the matches, because I think Unagi is actually very good. Like, she's very good in her role and what she does. She's had some great matches over the past year. So I have been a little let down from her match output. Like, if we were to compare her and Mina, I think it's night and day in terms of who's been the better competitor. Yeah. And I think Unagi's a better wrestler than Mina Shirakawa. So that's mostly the sad part of it. But I'm excited to see her match with Tam, for example, from the Cork, and I think that's her chance to be her best match. They work really, really well together. I love their title match from last year. I actually think that's Unagi's best match of her career. So, that's probably where I'm at.
The Risa Serra match was good. The Shuri match was good. Utami was decent. It's just, it's not lived up to what she's at her best.
Yeah, and she doesn't even feel like that great underdog either. She just...
No. That was her story last year.
Yeah, it was, but she won sometimes. So I would have liked if she...
That's why she's no longer an underdog, because she's proven she can
figure herself out. I think she only went like 500. It's not even like she won one, but she did a lot better.
She got a big win over Tam, and that was first night, I think. So straight away, that kind of changed the discussion of the story for her.
Yeah, I think she still gets a decently sized win. She has a few shots. Saki, all caps. My best way to describe her has been steady. Nothing's been really bad or bad. Nothing's been really good or good. Just kind of
been whelming.
It's been fine. Yeah, whelming is a good one. She's been fine. Like, she's fit her role. She has kind of these good sprints with some people, like her sprint with was it Hameka? Yeah, Hameka at the Budokan was really fun. It was just really quick and it kind of ended. So it's like, oh well, I can't do much with that, but thank you. That's kind of been her run, and she's fit her role. She's someone that can beat anyone, but can also lose to everyone.
Yeah, I think probably the most scathing condemnation you could probably say about this is I don't see people watching this 5-star Grand Prix going, I'm going to go find Saki matches outside of it. Like you look at Souza, you look at Reese, you look at Iroha last year. Like, if people didn't know who they were, you could see them earning new fans. Saki, I mean,
which is
maybe
really funny because Saki's part of a faction.
Yeah, but like she's not a top tier wrestler.
No,
but she hasn't necessarily stepped up above what I was.
She's a good role player.
Yeah. You bring her off the bench and she does what you need to do, but she's not going to win your game. She's not clutch necessarily.
She took Kairi's spot, so hard to live up to that. Anyways, Saki Kashima. I think the best way to explain her, by the way, speaking of great role players, there may not be a better role player in the history of Stardom than Saki Kashima. She plugs into spots better than most, as we saw with the match with Shuri last year.
Yeah.
For those who may forget, also was voted very high by Japanese fans as one of their favorite Stardom matches of the year. And
I didn't quite think it was that good, but
no, I didn't either. But
that was a surprising one.
Her Artist of Title run this time around has really showcased how great she
Absolutely.
Is. And I think, again, she's fitting her role perfectly. She is the best tournament spoiler in wrestling, in my opinion.
Yeah, she's the night off in the sense of like you're not going to have a hard like the person facing Saki Kashima is not going to come away with tons of bruises and worn out. But yeah, as you said, she's the ultimate role player. The only person I was sort of thinking in history, like I would be leaning maybe Natsu Samir as well, but she's not as versatile as Saki Kashima in that respect. So she's done exactly what you needed from her this tournament, and she's proving why you want her in this kind of position. She's too valuable.
Saki Kashima also has the best finisher in wrestling. You just can't beat it. So that too. We'll go right through these two, Koguma and Mai Sakurai. For Koguma, I think she's been the most underwhelming wrestler in this entire tournament. She's a great wrestler who has become the night off for a lot of people. She does her bear thing, and then they just kind of playfully go around, and either she gets a roll-up win or she loses. Nothing to it. Very, very upsetting tournament in my eyes for someone that I thought could have really been an underrated wrestler going into this. I could understand anyone walking out of this and be like, what is everyone talking about? And I gotta also say, she doesn't really do much in her tag title matches either, so it's not even like she's showcasing. She's just kind of there.
Yeah, she's a slight comedy character that occasionally has to get serious. I think you had higher expectations of her in this tournament than I did because it's been about what I was expecting from her this tournament. So it's been fine, but yeah, it's been a night off kind of match for the most part, and I think she would really benefit from one or two of her remaining matches, sort of kicking it up a gear and just kind of going, yes, it's been all fun and games, but I can, where's the person that was, beating Io Shirai for the high-speed championship all those years ago?
Yeah. And Mai Sakurai, she's kind of filled that Unagi role from last year. She's getting some shocking wins, of course, the big one against Jamaica. And yeah, she's a spoiler in a sense, but it's clear Stardom likes her. I've talked to some people that have kind of hinted maybe she got some of Tekla's points too.
That would be a fair call.
The main earner of that, which would make a lot of sense because, of course, Tekla did miss this tournament. She would not have went the 11-7 Momo Kogo has. So she's benefited a lot, but I don't think she's been bad. I think she's she's a lot better than she was last year. We've talked about her improvement a number of times. It's been nice to see her have a nice little tournament here. Nothing special, but she's fit a role.
It's a low-key important sort of arc for her because, yes, she'd started to prove herself worthy of the position and the focus she was getting, but it's a bit easier in a tag situation where you can maybe be hidden a bit more, especially when Julia was by your side. But this has been sustained efforts where she's had to prove herself against a mixture of opponents and a mixture of styles. And she's not walking away as my favorite of the tournament or anything, but she's done her job well, and I feel more confident now having seen her progression and now seeing how she's performed here. So good job, Mai Sakurai.
Risa Sera, someone I think that's earned a lot of fans, whether it be through this tournament or her match with Shuri, of course. I think so Risa Sera is someone that I say that I wish I've seen her whole career because she'd probably be one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, let alone now. I think she's fantastic for the way she's able to switch between being this, fantastic deathmatch wrestler to someone that is incredible inside the ring. She hasn't had matches that are like, wow, that was a match of the tournament type matches, but she's had matches where I think you walk away from them and be like, wow, that was really good, including the one from the Yokohama Budokan with Unagi. It was really short, but it was really effective in how they told it, and I think she's great at that. I don't want her or Suzu Suzuki ever going away full-time from Stardom because I think they fit their roles perfectly.
Yeah, Reese has been wonderful in this tournament. I absolutely agree. She's not. I don't think any of her matches are match of the tournament for me. But she's had a whole bunch of tier 2 and tier 3 matches, which is good. There's nothing to sort of be disappointed about that with. The only thing I would say is I hope she's going to ice her knees after this tournament.
Oh my
because
god, dude!
like 60% of her offense is knee based, and like that, the final knee drop she did to Inagi, she got some bounce off of that top rope. And I mean, I feel bad for Inagi's ribs because they had to take all of that. But like my knees are bad and I don't wrestle. I can't imagine what she's going through.
The way I talk about this sometimes is like Rena has that as her finisher now. It's the double knees, and I was like, yeah, she has like one of the most devastating moves in wrestling now because it looks like it hurts. And then I watch Risa Serra's, I'm like, oh, you can actually make it more brutal. However,
that's what happens when an 80-pound teenager isn't doing it.
Yeah, well, Risa Serra, she's great, and I hope that her and Suzu do enter Tag League. I think they could have a phenomenal run if that's the case. Tam Nakano, I think my best way of saying this is she's having the exact tournament that you expect from Tam Nakano, right? She's gonna take some nights off, but she's gonna go all out for the matches she wants to, and save all your energy for that final, Tam. That's okay with me because that's the match I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, she's been good, but she's been quiet.
She also has the most matches left.
Yes, she hasn't had as many chances outside of Suzu. She hasn't had as many chances to showcase what she's can do. I think this starting now is when Tam Nakano really kicks it up a gear overall, and I think it will begin with the Inagi match because that is going to be classic Tam storytelling. She's going to pull her out of Inagi, and I presume it's already happened. We haven't seen it yet, but I could be making myself look like a fool. But I'm 90% sure there's going to be a classic Tam Rhodes style match, which will lead into the Tam to win the tournament story truly kicking off.
Yeah. She's not going to win the tournament, but it's going to be an emotional journey in that final. I'm telling you. Trying to get myself mentally prepared for that. Shuri, last year's MVP by far. Last year's winner, of course. The World of Stardom champion. She's got all the accolades. She doesn't need that many accolades from us right now. She's had some great matches, as you expect. She's done what she can with all of her opponents, right? Like she's not wrestling all like we know the Red Stars block is the weaker one, so I never expected her to repeat as MVP. But when she gets matches against people that level, she hasn't missed.
When we were prepping this particular podcast, I was thinking, okay, who's been standouts and stuff? And I looked at her and I'm like, she's been not disappointing, but she hasn't sort of drawn my attention like last year.
She made it unfair after last year, man.
Yeah, but like I say that, and then
like the greatest run ever.
I looked at like the matches other wrestlers have had. And I'm like, okay, Utami's had good matches against Shuri. Himika's had good matches against XY Shuri. Jimmy's had good matches, and I realized like, okay, Shuri hasn't drawn my attention probably because I've just been focusing on everyone else, but Shuri's had so many great matches, so. It's not being quiet. It's just after last year and as the red belt champion, I'm not necessarily like the expectation's so high with her that what she's done hasn't been a standout, but it has been a standout.
Sure. No, I totally agree. And I think it's hard for her in a lot of ways to live up to where she's been. I think her match with Himeka from this tournament and her match with Utami and her match with Azumi stand out as just three great ones, like you said. I think you did name exactly those three.
Maika was fantastic as well.
Maika was great too. Maika winning was even better. Just change it up, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Shuri's playing like she's just has the hardest situation because it's like, oh, well, you had the greatest, you may be the single greatest full tournament I've ever seen last year. And now you're not doing that, so you're slacking. No, you're actually not. You've actually delivered in every match you're supposed to. So thank you. Let's move on here. Utami Hayashishida. Still a lot of matches to go. But I think Utami has quietly been a potential MVP candidate. She has two of the best matches, I think, in the tournament against Shuri and Maika. And she has a good road to the end of this tournament, too, which could be very interesting. But I think people are kind of sleeping on Utami, but she's woken up for the tournament, as we all hoped.
Yeah, she grew her hair out, which means she means business. Ignore the photos of her at the women's fan event where she had short hair again. They're totally not extensions. Yeah, she's done really well. Again, hasn't necessarily been a stand. I don't think the story's been surrounding her, which is probably the main reason she stood out more.
Just kind of Tommy.
Yeah, she's doing her thing. She's the Red Queen, and she's fantastic at what she does.
Yes. Micah and Himeka, we'll kind of squish them into one because I think
everyone always does.
Well, I think they've had similarly great tournaments.
Yeah.
I think Micah's a legitimate tournament wrestler. We've already seen it before. She's proved that last year. She's proven it again this year. She has some big wins, big matches, big performances. Like her most recent match against Tam was really good. It was really quick, so it's like it was a sprint, but she's had a really good turn. And then
the more Micah's forced to sprint, the better, I think.
I agree, because then you get into the long epic. Though her and Utami shocked, I think, everyone of the way they executed that, because you kind of expected them to go full epic, and then they're like, "No, let's just be the two powerhouses and just absolutely wreck each other." And Himeka as well. She had a really, really good tournament. That's coming from someone that doesn't have the Himeka bias like my friend here.
You hate her.
No, I don't hate her either. I was just saying I don't have the deep bias that you have.
No.
She's had a really solid tournament. Obviously, she's at the top. Her tournament's pretty much over, so we kind of have an idea of what she's done. But I'm really looking forward to that match with Micah on the final night. That should be a great way for them both to cap off what has been great tournaments for them.
Himeka's had a really good tournament, and she's had the benefit of, I think, the first half of the tournament has kind of told a Himeka story, because she has been front running. She's been getting some key matches early, so she's benefited from that. I think Micah has been more impressive because I don't feel like people were paying attention to her story, and then all of a sudden she's racking off these big wins and getting huge moments and really sort of commanding the attention. Whereas Himeka, I think people were watching, not because it was Himeka, but just the way the tournament was structured benefited Himeka's exposure more than Micah. So both have done brilliantly. I'm a Himeka person, but Micah's had a standout tournament.
I have to agree with that. And of course, the final Red Stars block participant, Azumi, who currently leads, and she's doing what you kind of expect from her. Have a great tournament. Have some great she actually just won. She hasn't really been a spoiler. She beat
Yutani with a Canadian destroyer into the Zumi Sushi.
Yeah, which was so clean, by the way. It was like perfection. You couldn't have done any better than she did. Azumi's as ready as anyone on this roster to make the next step. So it's really nice to see her get wins, even though we don't really expect her to be in contention in terms of winning this.
Yeah.
It's just nice to see her there. It's nice to see
I would like her to go all the way, just because her 20th birthday is on the night of the final, and Rossi should give her the ultimate birthday present.
Too bad she's getting the heartbreak via Saki Kashima.
Yeah, and she can't even drink yet, which is the worst thing. She can't drink a sorrow away. She has to wait
Saki will for her, don't worry. Saki's got her covered.
Saki will get sake for her.
I'm sure Micah does too.
Yeah.
But yes, she's really she's better Azumi. I don't think
this hasn't been a surprise in terms of quality.
And I think she has a future MVP tournament in her in the future. I wouldn't say this has been the one. She's not really in the block to do so either. No. But she definitely has one in the future, which I really do look forward to. Match that she had was the one with Tam, I think. Did she wrestle Tam yet?
Yes.
Yeah, that was really fun because you got to see high speed Tam, which is something we don't get to see all that much.
Yeah.
She's really good at it. So that's a future match I'd love to see for a title someday, but it's a matter of if we will by the time a certain Tam Nakano maybe hangs up the boots. But, I believe her when she says she'll never do it now.
Yeah, it almost felt like that announcement with Natsupoi came quite poignant with some of us, saying, she's got a couple of years and then she's done.
I don't want Tam to go anywhere. I think she's at the top of her game. So, Blue Stars block, the A block in a lot of ways, right? It's the elite block. It's the block where you kind of just have all hits, no misses. Even the lower people have been really enjoyable. So let's talk about it. Hanan, 0-9, but I think Hanan has done exactly what you wanted to see from her in this tournament.
Yeah.
She's shown improvement each and every match, and it paid off this past weekend. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But she feels confident now. You and me talked about it. The match with Mayu, while good because of the story, did have sloppy points. There's no more. It's not really sloppy anymore. It's very clean. And she almost feels like now when she's fighting the future division, it's like, oh, well, she's kind of over that now. I'm ready. I'm ready for the next step. She's wrestling all these A tier people. Like, let's get her wrestled there. She is developing into the future, whether she's a franchise player or a cornerstone or a pillar or whatever stupid language you want to use as the future of a company. She is absolutely showing all the signs of being that.
Yeah, this is what we needed to see from her, because she's been good in the future tournament, but like, you're not going to get 5-star matches from that. And she needs these matches with the main eventers and the top of the game wrestlers to kind of lift her to that next level, because she's not getting, she's not going to learn how to do that against, say, Arena or Hina or something like that. So yeah, she's been constant. She's been steady, even though I wasn't as enamored with the Mayu match as others because of that sloppiness. I think it's an important learning step. You have to have these slight missteps, and 5-star block is a great way to have them, because then you've got your next match a week later and you can erase your mistakes. So it's been exactly what Hanan needed, both for her and I think the audience watching her.
Yeah, for all different reasons, I think my favorite matches of hers have been the Mayu one, because it was her first one, so you just kind of got to see her deal with everything she was dealing with, right? The excitement of being in the tournament, be a little scared, so she messed up a little bit, but also tell that story with Mayu, and Mayu, helped lead her through that, despite, I'm sure, a lot of butterflies that could knock you off. The Hazuki one, I think stars, when they wrestle each other, it's just really good, because they're all very comfortable with each other. And the Mirai one, I thought the Mirai one was actually really good as well. Maybe the best pure wrestling match she's had so far.
Judo versus judo, baby.
Yeah, it works out. It works out every time. Suzu Suzuki, this is a tough one, obviously, because she has very few matches in her.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if she goes at the form that she is going right now in terms of match quality, there will be an unquestioned MVP by the end of this, because she has 5 matches and they've all been good to great.
Yeah. Obviously, like, it's been front loaded a bit now, like, in terms of who she's been facing. Like, her weakest opponent's probably been Natsupoi, and I mean, Natsupoi is having a career year as well. She's going to have to earn her stripes a bit more in the second half of the tournament. But absolutely right. Like, there hasn't been a match there where she's had where I've been disappointed. She'd had probably a top 2, top 3 match of the night every time she stepped in the ring. It's been fantastic. And we knew it was going to be. It's just kind of delivering to the hype that we'd already established as super high.
I made this note the other day. The fact that she had one of the best matches of the tournament with Mirai gives her a leg up, I think, on everyone else in being MVP, because of all the competitors she has left that we have, like, here in the conversation, right? Like, I will be shocked if I'm not saying, oh, well, it's Suzu Suzuki by default. Even though Hazuki, I think, has really been the one so far as MVP, Suzu Suzuki has plenty of matches to catch up.
Not to mention, she's come in with a shoulder injury and coming off of COVID. Like, she had a horrible beginning to the tournament. Like, you wouldn't wish that on anyone.
We almost thought she was going to miss the tournament at one point.
Yeah.
So we're just happy to enjoy her. But she goes all out. We'll talk about her match with Saya in a few minutes. Let's pick it up here. We have a few people we can kind of steamroll through. Saya Ida, Mina Shirakawa. I'll keep them in the same group as advertised. Mina's, of course, as we've talked about throughout this, definitely stepped up, and I think Saya Ida's stepped up too in terms of, she's the lower person on this card or tournament, but she's had solid matches, nothing bad.
It's played well into her style because she's a classic powerhouse underdog. And the 5-star tournament's a perfect story for underdogs to have. And she's walked away with more wins than I thought she was going to, and walked away with bigger wins than I was going to expect.
Sure.
So, by all accounts, both in kayfabe and out, it's been a good tournament for her.
Yeah, she's beaten Momo Hazuki. Can't ask for much bigger wins than that. And Mina Shirakawa, like we said, pretty much this whole
5-star Mina.
Yeah, 5-star Mina. She shows up for the tournament. It's been a good showing. Starlight Kid and Momo Watanabe, we will definitely stick them in the same one. Both, Momo's obviously been more underwhelming. She's had more matches, but I think Starlight Kid also kind of belongs in that in terms of points-wise, but she's had some great matches. She had some great matches. Starlight Kid has shown, I think, to anyone that's doubted her, and I don't know why you are anymore if you are, she is as good as anyone. She has some of my favorite matches in this tournament. The opening night with Saya, of course, was great. The match with Momo Watanabe was excellent, and the match with Julia is a match of the tournament contender. So she's been phenomenal.
Yeah, neither of them have stormed away with wins, but they've both been incredibly important to the overall quality of the tournament. They've delivered every match. They've told the stories they've needed to tell. Momo with the wrench thing obviously is a little disappointing for the Momo fans, but I think it's doing what needed to be done in the process of this story. And yeah, they're still having amazing matches, which is what you want from them.
Yep. Starlight Kid, again, she has shown the signs of that baby face in this tournament. It's been really enjoyable to see. Because the moment it happens,
there's your top star.
Yeah, she doesn't have a ceiling. It's over for everyone else trying to be a top star. Natsupoi, Mirai, and Ami Sourei. Well, I'll kind of stick them into, because I think they've all had similar tournaments. I think Ami Sourei and Mirai have definitely shown improvement. Mirai especially. I'm still light on Ami Sourei. A lot of people, especially Westerners, Western fans here, really started to like her. I'm still like, I don't. Here's my thing. I don't get excited for Ami Sourei matches at all. So that's part of the problem. And like people were like, "Oh, that match with Momo was great." I was like, it was okay. Like, I don't know. And I like Momo, so like I kind of expected it to be elevated up. But her match with Hazuki, I thought was her best match of the tournament so far. And then Mirai has shown, I think, all the improvements you've wanted to see her make. She's had all these big title matches this year, so it's been nice for her to kind of just be at the same level as people instead of having to be the main event. And she showcased a lot of stuff. Like her match with Mayu was great. Good dance partner for that one. Her match with Suzu, again, another match of the tournament contender. Which, those two just probably should be rivals forever. They just have instant magic. But she's really shown improvement. That's been enjoyable.
Yeah, look, Mirai's had a low-key, one of my favourite tournaments, sort of runs this year. The matches you've mentioned have all been fantastic, but there's not been many matches where I've been disappointed with what she's done. And I think she's really coming to her own, kind of showing what we were seeing glimpses of earlier in the year. This is kind of, Mirai, what we're getting now is showing why Rossi has sort of super pushed her, so to speak. Ami Sourei, look, I agree with you. Like, she's doing well. I'm not super excited for Ami Sourai's matches, but I think it's only because like she's filling a role which I'm not like. I like Hosses, but we've got Hosses in Stardom now, so her matches aren't necessarily unique enough at this stage to draw me in like some of the others are. But look, she has done well. She's done better than I was going to give her credit for, and that's a point. Yeah, she's done well. Like, she's not been the standout wrestler of the tournament, but she continued to have her incredible year run in this tournament, and she's doing what she needs to do.
I think she's had 3 great matches, and I think it's given her this amazing chance to get used to the Cosmic Angels, right? Like I joke and tweet that she's the Cosmic Angel because I don't think anyone embodies what that idea is more than Natsupoi. Like the moment she walks out there, you're just kind of like, wow, she should have probably been in this group since day one, huh? And I said after the entrance the other day, I was like, it's a crime we didn't get this sooner. It really is, because they're just so perfect together. Natsupoi, for me, she is my breakout Stardom Wrestler of the Year in terms of. And she's probably a contender for next year too. But every big match she's had to be in, she's delivered. Every story she's been in, she's delivered. And she's just been great. I don't count Mirai in breakout because Mirai wasn't here. Like she broke out as a wrestler, not as a Stardom wrestler. She broke out as a wrestler. But I think Natsupoi had a solid tournament.
Natsupoi's put herself into, like, you could see her being the white belt champion. And I didn't necessarily see that 6 months to a year ago.
Right. Yeah, it'd almost be upsetting if she doesn't get it at this point, which credit to her.
She's still young enough to sort of stick around and get that opportunity too.
Yeah. Yeah, weird for me to kind of put these two in the same conversation, but I think they're the two that have been incredible, obviously, but also they had a drop recently. So let's just talk about them both. They're tied at 11. Julia and Mayu Yutani. Julia, truthfully, like if we're talking about MVP, and I still think she's winning, so I can't counter. And she has had a phenomenal tournament in terms of matches, in terms of storytelling, just fantastic stuff every time she goes out there. You know, her getting her head shaved last year and just completely transforming as a wrestler has brought her from, she's great, she has the look, blah, 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 to she is one of the best in the world. It's unquestioned. She's not doing the whole grappling thing anymore that people, get scared about. No, she goes in there, she hits you as hard as she can, and you just go right back at her. Her match with Mayu, for example, she hit a back body drop off the opening bell to pour Mayu right onto her neck. And I was like, oh, it's go time.
She was wanting that.
She also has multiple. I think she might have 3 or 2 matches in my top 5 in this tournament.
Yeah.
She's just been absolutely
She's got 2 of my top 5 and then like 1 just on the periphery.
Yeah.
And I partially didn't have that in the top 5 because I felt awkward about having 3, like kind of like with Shuri last year. I didn't want to just stack the top 5.
Yeah, well,
Shuri matches, but
Shuri was so crazy last year. She was the winner, but also the MVP because it was just so unfair.
I think we're getting that again this
point.
year.
I was gonna say Julia's getting to that point.
Yeah.
And she has some crazy matches left to really just be like, oh, she was the best. And we'll talk about Mayu in a second because we'll never leave out Mayu. But I just want to hear your full thoughts on Julia as a competitor here.
Yeah, look, she's been my MVP of the tournament for all the reasons you said. Like, match quality has been fantastic, whether it's been the high end or the low end stuff. Really, the only disappointment was against Mina Shirakawa, and that's not because the match was bad. It's just I didn't want submission Mina. I wanted
that was the vibe of the night.
Mina.
To be fair,
yeah. But that's probably the only downside that she's had this tournament. The story has been there from her losing the first 2 matches and building back up. This has been Julia's tournament, both to win and to tell a story. So,
it's gonna be upsetting almost if like she doesn't, because I'm like, oh, I'm so ready for this red belt. Like, let's go. No offense to Shuri, she's been great for the past 2 years almost now, but it's Julia's time. It couldn't be more Julia's time. She has found her stride. She is so ready to be the person of this company.
They've timed it well, because I think this time last year, like a lot of people had her winning the tournament last year. Who knows if she was meant to?
It was too quick.
Yeah, I think it would have upset a lot of people because Julia kind of had that super push, and I think she needed that extra year and the downswing of Donna Del Mondo, things not going her way all the time like they had. It's really benefited her character then swing back in, and I think now is the right time for Julia to finally reach what we're all expecting, if maybe not waiting for, but definitely expecting.
People are going to hate that Julia is one of the best storytellers in this company as well.
She is.
Her match with Natsupoi is just like some of the best storytelling of the year in Stardom. Poor Natsupoi. But after that match,
person for that match though. She plays the beat up baby face better than anyone in the company.
And you see the face to face between her and Tam after. You're like, if this isn't the final, then what are we doing? And I think literally like Stardom couldn't tell a better story of Julia's first major win being against Tam Nakano to win the tournament. It would be perfect because that's the last time she had a major anything. Really. Like, she had tag titles and she's won some tournament matches, but this is different. This is different, and I really am looking forward to that. And Mayu Yutani, of course, we will never forget about the great Mayu Yutani, who, quietly is just having another great tournament. Very quietly. It's like, I don't know if she's had anything here, but she's like, her match with Julia is like that close, if anything. And I love that match. And I admit I have some, personal favoritism towards that match because of my fandom for both of them. But like, she's just had an incredible tournament. And truthfully, if Julia wasn't doing what she's doing, and Hazuki wasn't doing what she was doing. Mayu Yutani would probably be walking away with the MVP, but it's just because I think her consistency has been like even against the low competitors like an Ida or Hanan, she's just had really solid matches with them that I've really enjoyed. But of course, like I said, she doesn't have that match of the tournament yet. Mm-hmm. She still can. She still can. Her versus Momo last year was my favorite, or one of my favorites. Of like, there was a lot. Okay, on that final day, especially that probably pushed it down a little, but up until then, it was my favorite. She's just as consistent as anyone can be.
I actually have her and Julia, spoiler alert, in my top 5. I think overall, like, it's been a good tournament for her, and like the floor.
That's my 6th
matches.
Match,
yeah, that's fair. Her floor has been phenomenal. Like, she's not had a bad match. I just think maybe, it has been such a quiet tournament for her, and it just feels like she's there, she's going in, having a good match, going out. The tournament hasn't centered around her as a storyteller. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't have her in my top performers, and I think it's just because almost like Shuri in a sense, she just hasn't stood out to me when maybe she should have. Only Shuri, I was able to point to more matches, like best match of the tournament, match of the tournament, match of the tournament. So,
like, if people follow me, I rate like every single match, blah, blah, blah. I think she has the lowest floor out of anyone. Like, her worst match.
Highest floor,
sorry. Yeah, sorry. Worst floor in terms of like.
When she's bad, she's horrid.
No, she has, the highest floor. I think like the lowest I've given her is like, off the top of my head, 3.25 or something like that, which is really good. It's really good, know.
If that's your worst match in a tournament.
And she's had, I think 3 standout matches. Personally, it's just not at the top level. And again, it's Mayu Yutani, so it's like you just expect this, so it's almost unfair for her.
Yeah,
like Shuri, like you said, I think that was a great comp. And the final 2, Sayakamatani and Hazuki. We'll talk Sayakamatani here. Sayakamatani has been an interesting one because obviously she's been dominant. It wasn't until her match with Suzuki, which I adored, but that's selfish. Again, whatever. It was just so physical that I never imagined it. That was her like tournament defining match for me. Finally, took her a while. Her match with Kid was great, but not that level. She's been weird though, because it's like she's had such an amazing year that it's again unfair for her. She's in that Mayu Shuri thing where it's like, well, I expected even more from you because of your year. But and I look back and I'm like, oh, well, you've actually had a great tournament. It's just like you said, the stories and they haven't been focused on them.
Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that she had like 10 points already because I don't remember a lot of her matches. And it was almost like, oh, okay, she's going to have a really busy back half of the tournament. And that's not necessarily been the case. And it's not because she's had bad matches. They just haven't necessarily
underwhelming ones.
Yeah, I think ultimately she just hasn't stood out. And in a way, you would say, well, that's a bad thing. But I also know she's capable of standing out because of the white belt run she's had. So I'm not... like, it doesn't make me concerned for her future as a top-tier wrestler. It's just maybe almost like Tam Nakano just hasn't turned it up for this tournament.
Yeah, talk to us in 5 minutes when we go and sing the praises for her versus Suzuki. Anyways, because they gave us a hint of what their amazing championship match will be.
Yes.
Hint. Drops each, throws person off of apron. Hint.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive hint.
The worst thing about that was it was slightly sloppy, and they'll fix that up.
You say slightly sloppy, but it was terrifying. It's like no one was there to catch Saya, and she landed flat, so she couldn't hurt herself, but it was just terrifying.
That was like the best executed high spot they had.
Yeah.
The top rope jump over thing didn't work, the Hurricanrana didn't work, and then even like a little snapmare and a drop kick didn't work. So the fact they had as good a match as they did, despite all of that. I was gonna say,
like, they had all those mistakes, and yet they still had like this excellent match. Not a match of the tournament, but just excellent.
It
stuff.
Could have been if the
it would have probably been if they hit all of their spots perfectly. It would have probably been the match of the tournament. Which again, can't stress enough how good it was. Anyways, Hazuki, our last competitor here, someone that has been fantastic. She started off 7-0, dropped 3 since, but she you want to talk about consistency. I mean, she goes out there. She has excellent matches. She's had the best match for a lot of people in this tournament, I think, including Ami Saray, for example. I haven't seen her match with Saida yet, but I'm kind of confident that probably was too. She just lifts up a lot of people. Probably Hanan too, for example.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, she goes out there and she just has so much energy every time. And that match with Saya, that match with Julia, those are two that really stand out to me, especially. Just she's violent. She's a violent. Like you talk about the violence of Suzuki and Julia all the time, but Hazuki, she gets her violence in.
She's arguably been the most consistent wrestler in this tournament. And I guess I would put her in a similar block to, she's been a slightly better version of Himeka in the sense that she benefited from the story being about her in the first half of the tournament, but she had more consistency in her match quality. And like it felt like the first half of the tournament was Hazuki. And even though now, obviously, the gas has been taken off her a little bit, she's still going to be delivering because, you can send her out there and you know you're going to get like a 3.5 star match out of her, just about minimum.
Yeah, well, guess what? She's got Mayu and Momo left, so I expect a little higher. You say, you expect those. Well, she's she's going to go right past that, but I appreciate you being generous.
I was talking about the floor.
Yeah, we went through all of her matches, all of everyone's matches, all of everyone's tournaments, and I think this is our best time to just briefly talk about the Yokohama Budokan. We kind of talked about all the tournament matches as we did that.
Yep.
Is there any brief thoughts you have about those before we really quickly talk about the title matches, which did happen? I think people forget about those.
No, I think everything that needed to be said has been said. The only thing I would add is Azumi Yutani was kind of, I think it's getting underrated in how good it was, just because it was a quick sprint and it was surrounded by bigger impacting matches. Mayu Julia was harder hitting and Suzu Saya was harder hitting. So I don't think people are necessarily focusing on just how fun that match was, because the rule is, like you mentioned, stars always go hard. If you've got Queen's Quest versus Queen's Quest, you know it's going to be absolutely fantastic because they see that as an opportunity to just go balls to the wall.
Absolutely. My 2 cents, and I'm not just going to talk about GP matches. I'm just going to talk about pay-per-view as a whole. I think it's one of their best shows of the year from top to bottom because everything executed, if that makes sense. Everything did what it was supposed to achieve, whether it was, just a great match, exceeded expectations, or the match like Risa Sera versus Unagi was perfectly executed the way they did that entire match. Hameka and Saki, I thought, was very well executed in the way they did that match. And then, of course, you had the great GP matches of Saya and Suzu and Azumi and Utami and, of course, Mayu and Julia. So it's like you had those, and then you had 2 title matches that also delivered. So it's like I couldn't find a flaw. I said, for me, it might be my favorite pay-per-view since Flashing Champions. There was no filler either. That probably benefited them.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the most consistent shows that they've put on pay-per-view wise, and I would agree with you in the sense that there wasn't a match that disappointed. Everything was either to the level or above. I think the only reason why it was pulling me down is ultimately the tag match was really good, but I didn't care about it going in, and they didn't necessarily make me suddenly care. And kind of the same with the artists. So like the show was headlined by 2 matches that I thought they were going to be good.
I forgot what the title matches were going into it, to be honest. I forgot what they were. I was like, Hanan's in this match. That's crazy.
Yeah. Whereas like some of the other matches, like the Flashing Champions show or the Nagaoka show they had earlier in the year, like they had matches that even I wasn't expecting it to be amazing, they went so far above and beyond and got me so invested that they took it to the level. So this pay-per-view, really good, really consistent, but a step below the highest of Stardom for me just because I didn't have that emotional draw the same way.
Yeah. They didn't have, I think this is pretty clear, they didn't have time to build those stories, which hurt them, right? Because we're in the middle of a 5-star Grand Prix, so it's like...
But that's on them, because they booked it to be like this. So
yeah, well, the way I looked at it is like, they gave us challengers that are obviously going to lose. right? Like that's
yeah.
the way I looked at it.
If
But
you're going to give us Mariah Amy challenging for the third
I'm
time
gonna,
in, 3 months? Yeah,
the
do it
main
now.
the main match I want to talk about is the artist match, because I don't think you could have exceeded expectations anymore. Because you look at it, you're like, all right, well, Black Desire, FWC, we know what they can do. Add in Saki, add in Hanan, it'll be great. It'll be great. It's fine. And then Hanan has the performance of her career so far. She was the face of that match. She was the center point. Even in the entrance, it was made apparent this is about Hanan. And then she was fantastic. She had me on the edge of my seat thinking she could win. I didn't think she was going to win at all going into it. So
the new costumes had me wondering. To be honest, like when I saw that,
everyone like, oh, wait a minute. And this really, I think, puts all together what she's done in the tournament. She's become a more complete wrestler. She has figured out a lot of her moveset, and she has confidence. And that showcased here. Her and Starlight Kid towards the end was just absolutely brilliant. Like I was like, this is a future, World of Stardom title match. But the fact that they're doing this now, it's just so crazy. I thought she was the clear star of that match. We also got some Momo and Hazuki, beating the crap out of each other, which is never a bad thing.
Hinting for later on.
Yeah, it was mostly Koguma and Saki just kind of being there. But Hanan's performance, just made this match so much better than it ever should have been.
Yeah, this went above and beyond the expectation, and a lot of that was because Hanan stepped
I wish
up.
they told that story going in, that it was, because you kind of had to make the story in the match, right? There was no sign before their entrance that this was going to be about Hanan. And I wish we could have because the match was
a little bit. Yeah, the match got made because Hanan wanted to challenge, and from that they kind of built into it. But look, they didn't have the months-long storytelling that
which would have been nice. Just any hints, any further of the story. Yes, she won the match. She's the reason they have the match. But you want a little more. You want the build, because you could easily forget about that. Like I'm sure most people did watching this. It's like, all right, this is happening, and then they delivered, so it didn't matter. But it would have been nice.
Yeah, that's it. Hanan, a match, her best ever match. She performed to a level I wasn't expecting, and it really highlights what the 5-star has done for her. I also like that it was Starlight Kid that kind of became, because these artist championships, it turns out there's like the final 2 people that are in there for the last 10 minutes of a match. It's just the way Stardom tell these stories. I'm glad it was Starlight Kid here, because Saki has kind of been the story for the first couple of artist defenses, and looking at who's in for the next one, I'd say Momo is going to be the main story character for the next one. So I'm glad Starlight Kid got this one, and she worked wonderfully with Hanan. It is a future World of Stardom match, as you mentioned.
World Wonder, whatever you want it to be.
Both of them probably
main event. It's a future main event.
Yes, and it's going to be the kind of thing when they do the video package in 3-4 years, they're going to use this footage from the match. And we're going to be, oh, that's right. This is where it all began, essentially.
Also, that backdrop driver that she hit, I was like, oh my God, she's going to win. And then they just saved it. I was like, that was brilliant. Good job, guys.
But she had to have it broken up by outside people, which is a testament to that
visual pin.
And she kicked out of the moonsault from Starlight Kid, which
that was big. That's when I thought they were going to win. That's when I thought she was going to win. I was like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And she did. But fantastic artist match. And credit to Uedo Tai. They've been fantastic since the beginning of the year when they were in the tag title picture, and when they had the tag titles. They've just been, Starlight Kid and Momo have been amazing together. Better than I think anyone could have imagined, because Momo Oz was so good together.
Yeah,
that it's like, oh yeah, you can't make up for that. I think they have.
It makes sense to replace Azumi with Starlight Kid. And full credit to Stardom as well. These artist championships went from the token title that gets passed around like a hot pocket to being a championship that feels important. Yeah. And it's not just from Uedo Tai, it was from the previous couple of champions as well. They've really done some impressive rehab on this championship.
You know, it's my best way to give it credit. The title has went from a title where you were okay it being on a recorded Korakuen or Adiana Sakarina to
Shinkiba first ring.
right to I need this match live. Like I need to see this match live. So like you said, credit to them. But yeah, that's it from the Yokohama Budokan. I think we've passed enough time on that. Also, the finish, by the way, of Suzu and Saya was perfect.
Yes.
Like the German and then doing like the chaos theory of rolling through and the German again. I was like, oh man, these two are gonna have the greatest.
And she hasn't been using that as a finisher much lately, which was a nice little kind of throwback to what she's all about.
Yeah. More Suzu Suzuki winning. That's what we're signed up for. But all right. Top 5 matches of the tournament. You don't have to do it in any order. I'm not going to make you do it in order.
Thank you.
I just want your
I don't know what my order would be.
So we'll go back and forth. No order because I can't do an order either. I probably have my number 1, but I really don't. But I'll just do chronological and make my life easier. So I'll do.
Oh, you were smart to do it that way.
Well, I just have
that
I literally have them in order from like the first show and on, so I just know. It's easiest way to not forget anything too. I'm going to start with Suzuki and Julia from the opening night. That's a match that I absolutely adored. I think I've been pretty open about that. Just the way they kind of finished up that first night, really put an exclamation point on why this is the must-see tournament, why these two are going to be, a fantastic rivals. They're going to have a title match as well, I'm sure, when Julia's champion. And it really started off both stories perfectly, right? Yeah. Hazuki's rise to glory, even though she's falling now, but her first 7 were just special. It was a special watch. And really now Julia building her way back up. It's been interesting to see her flip the switch. It's not the first time I'm going to say Julia, or Hazuki, I think.
Spoilers. Well, I'll stay on the Julia train. It's the match I kind of basically said was in my top 5. Julia versus Mayu from the Yokohama Budokan. I thought that was just a wonderfully executed story, 15 minutes from bell to bell, just absolutely fantastic. 2 of my favorites in Stardom right now as well, which obviously helps. But yeah, their story has been special since they started, and this was just continuing that. So,
my next one is Mirai versus Suzu Suzuki. I loved their new blood match. Loved it. Thought it was fantastic stuff. And then they somehow upped themselves, which I just didn't think they could, because I think we can all agree, Mirai's great. She's shown that she's great, but I didn't know she was that level to elevate a certain match with someone we just saw her do it, but she did. She absolutely did. Her and Suzu went out there. They just put on a amazing Korakuen Hall main event. By the way, Suzu now has 2 Korakuen Hall main events in this tournament, just worth noting. And she's going to probably have the final match of the 5-star, if I had to guess, before the final.
Yes.
So that match was so good. It also reminded me not reminded me, but I think it told everyone why Stardom likes Mirai so much. And those two should be rivals forever. Like they're so good against each other.
Yeah, look, I agree so much that I'm going to list this as my second match as well.
Nice.
It was a match I hoped would deliver as well as it did, and then it exceeded what I was expecting from it. Obviously, the New Blood match kind of made me realize, okay, these two have incredible chemistry, but depending on how they're going to follow on from it, and they did it wonderfully. And the fact that it now had the story of Suzu's shoulder, it's fed into Mirai's story, it's fed into Suzu's story, and it's fed into Suzu's mini rivalry with Daichi. Every match she has, those two are joring, which I absolutely love because it worked with her character so well, both as kind of this violent, kind of slightly crazy wrestler, and the fact that she's an outsider. So everything just
adding that she's a kid too.
Exactly.
Who's very confident.
Almost annoyingly so. Which works wonderful because she's kind of more of a heel in Stardom, and it plays into that cocky character so beautifully. So we're in agreement for this number 2 match.
I'm sure we'll be in agreement for this next one too. I'm actually very confident. Annoyingly confident, I think, fits both of these wrestlers. Julia versus Starlight Kid. Another Korakuen Hall main event here. There's something about these Korakuen shows, Trent, that they hit every single time. Julia, masterful work against Starlight Kid anytime they face off. This was different from their title match because Starlight Kid didn't go full baby face. She had her mask ripped off and she's fighting like a mad woman the whole time because any time a mask is ripped, it just enhances someone, right? As many people have seen, I'm sure, the pictures of El Desperado and Jun Kasai. So that obviously helps. But this match was such great storytelling. I want to talk about Vicious again. Julia is just, she has been nothing short of incredible. And I'm not going to name all the matches, but the other one that like is borderline for me was also that Mayu versus Julia one. I think the only reason I'm not putting it in is because I don't want to say Julia 3 times. But she's been fantastic, and her and Starlight Kid was just one of the best, if not the best. Just they're so good against one another. Another future world title match, I think.
Yeah, look, this is going to be a boring countdown because this was on my list as well. So it's my number 3, Julia versus Starlight Kid. I can't really add much more to what you've said. You hit the nail on the head, everything, and then some. Like fantastic progression from their previous matches. The mask ripping is now going to be a requirement for every Julia Starlight Kid match. Even if she eventually removes her mask, I'm going to need her to bring back the mask just for the Julia matches, or Julia to wear a mask and Starlight Kid rip it off. Whatever, I just need this to happen. Just fantastic. These guys are just delivering every time.
It now feels like Starlight Kid needs to beat Mayu and Julia.
Absolutely.
Which is an awesome story for her, right? She has 2 just major stories. We had the Sayakamatani one, but they kind of just moved on from that one really quickly.
That doesn't have quite the same story behind it.
Doesn't have the same to
That's more for the championship, not the just visual of I finally beat that bitch.
Yeah, exactly. My next match here, I said it earlier, but Sayakamatani versus Hazuki. The story going into this one was, Hazuki sitting at 7-0. Sayakamatani is the Wonder of Stardom champion, and there's just a lot of excitement to that. And this is like I think it was the first match I'm naming that didn't have a big venue. I don't even know where they were. I don't even remember, but I think that's a credit to what they did. They were so violent in this match to a point that I never expected. Like, I know Hazuki's violent, but I don't really look at Saya that way necessarily. I'm sure you don't either. She's a wrestler that kind of embodies some of what Io Shirai does, and she's more of a flashy wrestler. But she accepted the violence, and they had a fantastic outing against one another. Like I said, the only bad part of it was that Hazuki lost, so we're not getting a title match. I wanted the title match.
No luck for you, Scott. We are now 3 for 4 on these this top 5 list.
And they were only 3 for 4 is because I didn't want to put Julia. Julia 3 times.
Yeah. So, look, it was absolutely fantastic. I wasn't as gutted by the fact that Hazuki lost this match, but I love the exact sort of reason you mentioned is because Sayakamatani, she's a flashing champion. That's her style. She's acrobatic. She's athletic. And in all of her matches for the white belt, she hasn't had a match that tested her violence and physicality to the level that she had in this match. And I really wanted to see how does she respond to just getting walloped in the gob like she did against Suzuki. And it brought out what I needed from her. Despite the fact this tournament hasn't highlighted Saya to the best, this was like if I could just take one match and go, okay, I'm safe and sound with Sayakamatani as a future big name. This match proved it to me because for all the flashiness, for all the pizzazz, she can get down and dirty and just go hell to leather.
Yeah, I said I was going in chronological order, but I'm not. I'm going back in time now. I've had a toss-up here. He already talked about Julia versus Mayu. I want to make this a little interesting and name the most matches possible as well. So I'm going to say Shuri versus Utami Hayashishida from night 2 of the tournament. I think it's forgotten for a lot of people in that this tournament has been so good. These two, we kind of talked about have been overlooked in the tournament because of so many other stories going on. But when we walked out of that weekend, I was like, this is the big story. Utami finally beat Shuri.
Yeah.
In convincing fashion. She pinned her 1, 2, 3. They had an excellent shortened match, and not that I didn't expect them to have an excellent match. They're born to do that. But it was just great wrestling. Anytime Shuri loses, it feels important. Yes. Loses clean, not on a roll-up. That's different.
Yeah.
When she loses clean, it's important. This felt as important as any match we've had, especially out of Utami this year. That was her biggest match of the year so far, so I want to give that one some love because it happened on day 2. I think a lot of people do forget about it, but it was fantastic.
It is crazy that match, like the result of that match was kind of not shocking, but like that was a big moment, and now no one really cares. Not cares, but we're all focused on other things.
I can name another like 5 matches. That's the problem here. Like, and I probably will really quickly. But
because you can't just settle for 5 or even 6 as you've listed. Well, for my final match, I have picked Utami Hayashishita versus Shmaika.
That was the other one I was.
Yes. Look, obviously the Shuri match was fantastic. I actually preferred this match just because I think, as we mentioned earlier in the show, these two just kind of could have gone for slightly more epic storytelling, which kind of is what they have defaulted to in the past. But this time they went, let's just use the most of the time that we have. And they just absolutely delivered and went crazy. The story for Maika, kind of in the same way that Utami's been chasing Shuri, Maika's been chasing Utami, and she got it. And she got it with the Michinoku driver party, which I think she's now accepted that this is probably the most fun way for her to finish matches for herself and for the fans. And so she's accepted it, and I'm so happy.
We all agree. I mean, that was one of the ones I was going to read off here that people should check out. But like every single match I'm about to name, let me go through them quick. I think everyone should watch because they were just that great. So Shuri versus Azumi. I think a lot of people agree on that one. Mayu versus Mirai.
Yes, that was in contention.
Sayakamatani versus Starlight Kid. That was a sprint. It was kind of like what we expected for their title match, and then they just didn't do. Starlight Kid versus Momo Watanabe, I think deserves a lot of praise.
For sure.
Hazuki versus Natsupoi, that's probably just me loving it, but I'm going to say it anyways. It's like some of these matches I don't even remember. That's the funny thing. I'm just like looking at my ratings. I'm like, oh, I like that one a lot. Sure. Hameka versus Azumi was great. Natsupoi versus Momo I liked, so that's not shocking. I probably did like it. Probably very, very interesting. All right, moving on. Hazuki versus Suzuki was good. Just we expected even more from them.
You can just say Suzuki every match, really.
That's true. I can. All of Suzuki's matches, I'll just make it easy. We already named those 2. Julia versus Natsupoi, I think, is a must-watch.
Yes.
Even if it's not
the best wrestling match,
right? But it's probably the best storytelling match.
Yeah. We had Mai Sakurai versus Tam the same night.
I think that's also worth watching.
It's worth watching, but I think like the problem was they told the same story, and that's the point. Julia told it better.
Of course they did. That's a little unfair.
Look, to be fair, Mai Sakurai, they did really well considering, but.
Probably going to be one of my favorite sprints of this tournament was Mayu versus Natsupoi. They wrestled for like 6 minutes, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's phenomenal!" And then it ended. I was like, "Why?" I was like, "This had all the makings of being like this, like just absolutely top tournament match." If they went the whole way instead of not even half, they didn't do that. They broke my heart. I was like, "I need this for the Wonder of Stardom title tomorrow, please." Shuri versus Hameka.
Yes.
Like we hinted, we didn't. I guess we didn't really say this, but Saya and Suzu worth watching, of course. And then you, of course, said Maya and Julia and Utami versus Azumi. So those are all the matches I think you should definitely go out of your way to see if you're trying to not watch the whole tournament.
Speed running the best stuff.
But as we finish up here's a look at what we have coming up. Because I think our top 5 could be in shambles by the end of this. Truthfully, that's how great of lineups we have coming up. We haven't even watched Mayu versus Suzuki as of this taping, and I feel like that might be there. Just saying. But we have Okay, so on the 17th, we have Shuri versus Saki, Utami versus Saki Kashima, Mai Sakurai versus Risa Sera, and Maika versus Nagi Sayaka. Always a fun matchup. Natsupoi versus Starlight Kid.
That'll
High
be good.
speed greatness. Saida versus Suzuki, and Mirai versus Mina Shirakawa. On the 18th, we have Tam Nakano versus Risa Sera. That could be an underdog type dark horse match of this tournament, I think, if they go all out. Koguma versus Nagi Sayaka. Mai Sakurai versus Saki. We have Julia versus Ami Sarai. Sayakamatani versus Mirai. Big rematch there. Momo Watanabe versus Suzu Suzuki. Oh, jeez. I think I said that earlier, but I'm saying it again. Mina Shirakawa versus Starlight Kid. On the 19th, there's a lot of shows left. Utami versus Saki, Koguma versus Risa Sera, Azumi versus Nagi Sayaka, Tam Nakano versus Momo Kogo, and Maika versus Mai Sakurai. And then Blue Stars block that day. We have Mina versus Suzu. So, a weaker day finally.
Yes.
Which you need one because the rest, literally after that, it's over. There's no more. we got Momo Kogo versus Saki Kashima versus Risa Sera, Azumi versus Koguma, Shuri versus Tam Nakano on the 23rd, and along with that, this is the live Korakuen, by the way, on Samurai TV. We have Hanan versus Suzu Suzuki, Natsupoi versus Saida, Mirai versus Starlight Kid, Sayakamatani versus Mina Shirakawa, Mayu Iwatani versus Hazuki, and Julia versus Momo Watanabe. The one match I've been waiting for 2 years. It's finally happening. Fingers crossed. I got it robbed last year. I need it now.
And it's live. Like when we were looking at this, and like that show stood out from the moment they announced these cards. And like if you could have picked a card to be live that wasn't, this was the one. And they're showing it live on Samurai. So
you have Shuri versus Tam, Mayu versus Suzuki, and Julia and Momo. Finally,
yes.
Plus Mirai versus
knock on wood. Let's not.
Yeah, well, I have been saying it since the
Let's not monkey paw with this.
I need it. The 24th, the day after, we have Maika versus Momo Kogo, Hameka versus Nagi Sayaka, Utami Hayashishita versus Tam Nakano. They're phenomenal together. Can't wait for that one. Suzu Suzuki versus Ami Sarai. That should be pretty good. Mina Shirakawa versus Hanan, Starlight Kid versus Saida, Mayu Yutani versus Momo Watanabe, Julia versus Sayakamatani. Jeez, that's a hell of a back-to-back. And then the next day after that is Stardom Showcase Volume 2, which features Saida versus Hanan. Nope, we're not talking about that. And Suzu Suzuki versus Starlight Kid. And then, of course, the final on October 1st, which will be live on pay-per-view. The most must-see night of the tournament. If you missed the entire tournament, you want to watch this. It was their best show last year.
Yes.
Me and Trent agree on that. No show could touch this one. And based off this card, it could be the same thing once again. Azumi versus Saki Kashima, Nagi Sayaka versus Momo Kogo, Tam Nakano versus Saki, Maika versus Hameka for the first time ever, Utami versus Koguma in a World of Stardom rematch between Shuri and Risa Sera. And on the Blue Stars block side, Mirai versus Saida, Natsupoi versus Mina Shirakawa, Hazuki versus Momo Watanabe, Sayakamatani versus Ami Sarai, Mayu Iwatani versus Starlight Kid, and finally, Julia versus Suzu Suzuki. Oh, and by the way, there will be a final as well after all of that.
Yes.
So yeah, those are your remaining cards. There's one week one. The rest of them have like potential not only match of the term, but match of the year contenders. So if you thought this was slowing down, it's not. And I might have just lost my voice through all that, but that's okay. That's okay. That's why we're here, to tell you all about that. So keep an eye out for that. We will have a review, or when I say we, I mean Fightful Overbooked. I guess, I will at least.
Spoiler, I'm not being invited back.
Well, he probably will be. But, we'll see. We'll see by then. There's a lot of time. You never know what happens. But, most must-see show of the year. Also worth noting, Stardom Dream Queendom is officially back on December 29th. They've claimed their day. They have claimed their pay-per-view name. We finally have their version of Wrestle Kingdom, and I'm
they've claimed their
so
venue.
happy. Yes,
Where you go to again.
They are going back to the Sumo Hall. The fact that they claim their venue and the date and the match, it's as big as it can get. They're not walking into the Tokyo Dome yet, but that's really just their next step after all this, which is kind of crazy. And it will happen. Not yet.
Yeah.
But it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. It's slowly but surely coming. Of course, we have historic crossover as well coming up in November. We just have a lot. Stardom is the funny thing about this is after this tournament ends, Stardom is going to do their IWGP Women's Championship tournament. I believe actually the first match of that tournament happens either the day of the GP or the day after. We don't have to talk about that much, but we also have to learn the bye. We still have to learn the bye wrestler. We have to learn the entire field for the Stardom side, and of course, the champion will be crowned as Stardom in New Japan's show. Historic crossover. After that,
big show the night before too in Osaka at the Edion First Arena.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, it hasn't really been announced, but because I was looking at it because I'm still hopeful I can get over there. And I was like, okay, what shows have they got around that time? And the day before they're in Osaka with, I think it was not a pay-per-view. It's going to be a pretty big show regardless.
It's the first arena. It's going to be I'm pretty sure. They run number 2 all the time, but the first arena is the big one, which is crazy on another show. Anyways,
I want more of your money, Scott.
And I don't know if people know this, but Tag League's coming as well, which based on the roster, based on the people that are coming in, we've
already put in 7 new teams that haven't been.
We could be putting in Risa Sarah and Suzu Suzuki potentially. I think Galaxy Punch is probably a shoo-in to be in there since they are a part of Cosmic Rules too. There's just a lot of teams. You and me talking about Waka, Mocha, Hanazono, that's a possibility. Mace Saruga and Azumi potentially teaming, though.
No, Warm Caterpillars. Bring in Shea and Mace Saruga.
That would be great. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, off the top of my head, how it evens out and what they do. It's really difficult, okay? Yeah. Like, I don't know if they're going to put Miyu Amasaki in a tournament. If they do, her and Azumi does make the most sense. Yeah. But Miyu Amasaki is gone. Has disappeared once again. So me predicting her schedule is about as useful as me predicting Kairi's schedule. Very different. One's Brock Lesnar, the other one's just like, I don't even know what Miyu Amasaki is. Anyways, that is all. That is the lineup for Stardom to look forward to. It's a lot. And also, within all of that is Wrestle Princess 3 on the TJPW side, which is their biggest show of the year.
There's a 10th anniversary as well coming up this week.
Which is a very big show. That's very Wait, is it the 10th anniversary one this week?
Or
is it's still the lead
I think
up,
it's still Road to, but it's a pretty big show nonetheless.
I was going to say, I feel like Emmy would be back for that.
She is. She's wrestling the new debutante.
Oh, that's great. I meant for the 10th anniversary though. Like, 10th. I feel like that would have been a little more hyped. I was like, I thought it was. I'm happy they're in arenas.
It's a big show, because Emmy's coming back, Balianaki's coming back, CCK are teaming up, and then of course you've got the big Mace Saruga versus Unimon match to headline it. So
all of Got to Move. If you can't get into the Choco Pro, watch all their venue shows because I think they're all excellent. Lots conventional. Lots going on in Joshi. I'm pretty sure Sendai Girls has their next pay-per-view coming up soon. And Ice Ribbon's doing stuff. And you get the point. Joshi doesn't slow down. So I'm going to end the show. So, Trent, thank you for joining me once again. I hope everyone has officially been caught up on the 5-star. I think we did our best. I think we put our best foot forward to give everyone a look at the final stretch here, which is the most important stretch. I think we've reached the point where we know who's contenders, who's not. Should be a lot of fun. But until next time, guys, so long.